You can't bring Mom back, and Lauren's birthday is only once a year. That's what my son said the morning of my wife's funeral. I stood in the kitchen, holding her coffee cup, lipstick still on the rim. My black tie was already knotted, already tugged loose and redone twice. I called him at 8:30 a.m. "Michael, it's today," I said, voice cracking under the weight of 100 sleepless nights. "Your mother's." "Yeah, I know," he cut in. "But Lauren's birthday party starts in an hour. The venue won't reschedule." I couldn't respond. Not right away. My brain refused to make the leap from her death to her birthday. "She's dead, Dad," he continued, flat, like it was some outdated calendar entry. "Lauren's turning 35. That's a milestone. She'll only do this once." "And your mother only dies once," I said quietly. He sighed, annoyed. "You're being dramatic." And just like that, he hung up. I stared down at the screen like it might apologize, but the call was over. So was the illusion. They say funerals bring families together. But all I felt was the cold space to my left, where Michael should have stood. His absence screamed louder than any hymn. The church was full, but the pew beside me stayed empty. Hymns echoed off the stained glass like they were meant for someone else's sorrow. My eyes drifted from face to face. Neighbors, old friends, my foreman from the site I retired from. They all looked at me the same way. That tilted head sympathy that doesn't ask, doesn't pry, but wonders, "Where's the sun?" I clenched my jaw. It was the only thing I could control. My brother leaned in during the second reading, whispered, "Where's Michael?" I didn't look at him. He had other commitments. The words sat wrong in my mouth, tasted like lies, because what I wanted to say was, "He's eating cake while I'm swallowing dirt." But instead, I fixed my eyes on the altar, the polished pine box draped in white cloth, the photo beside it. She was smiling in that picture, head tilted, eyes lit like she'd just heard a good joke. I remember taking it. We were in the backyard, grilling steaks. Michael had just gotten into grad school. Funny how the big memories bring back the small ones. People kept glancing over. Some subtle, others not. Not because they wanted gossip, but because something about a missing child at a parent's funeral breaks protocol, feels unnatural, like a flag flown upside down. I tried to focus on the eulogy. The pastor did his best. She gave selflessly. She loved deeply. Her home was always open. But I heard the subtext, "Where is the fruit of all that love?" And in that moment, something cracked in me. I had covered for Michael too many times. Told friends he was working late when he forgot birthdays. Told his mother he'd call tomorrow when he hadn't phoned in weeks. I smoothed every sharp edge he left behind. But this? There was no smoothing this. After everyone left, I stayed behind. Just me and her photo. I ran a hand down my face. It came away wet. Not from fresh tears. From years of silence. Of swallowing my frustration every time Michael asked for more and gave back less. Every time she said, "He's busy, but he loves us." And I nodded, like I believed it. That night, I didn't sleep. Just sat in the living room, staring at the box of funeral programs on the coffee table. One name was missing, and I knew, as sure as the moon rose over the empty street, that this wasn't just the end of her life. It was the beginning of something else. Something colder, sharper, and far less forgiving. I just sat at the kitchen table, a legal pad in front of me, and a pen in my hand. I wasn't sure what I was doing at first. Maybe trying to distract myself. Maybe hoping that putting things on paper would keep the grief from pooling in my chest. But then, I saw the receipts again. The invoices. The stack I'd left on the edge of the table. $932,000. I wrote that number at the top of the page. And then I started listing. Not just the money, but the dates, the circumstances, the tone in his voice each time. 2004. "Dad, I need help with tuition this semester." The scholarship didn't come through. $18,000. Paid in full. No repayment. No follow-up. 2009. The wedding venue just raised the price. Can you cover the gap? Lauren's parents are strapped. $42,000. Paid without question. 2015. House deals moving fast. I can't let this one slip. Just need help with the down payment. $160,000. Wired the next day. One after another, they came back to me. And what hit me hardest wasn't the amounts. It was how every call came with the same rhythm. Urgency wrapped in entitlement. Like help was owed. Like our love only had value when it had a dollar sign attached. I kept writing. Pages worth. Each one digging deeper into the timeline of a life spent giving. By sunrise, I'd filled half the legal pad. I made coffee. Black, bitter, no cream. Sat there and stared at the note again. Don't let Michael forget us. She didn't ask me to fix him, just not to be forgotten. And I realized he forgot us the moment the money ran dry. He forgot her birthday last year, forgot my knee surgery, forgot to call on their last anniversary, sent a text 2 days late, said he got tied up. He remembered us when we were useful, when we were the bank. But funerals don't offer credit lines, and grief doesn't earn points. I stared at the legal pad, my pen resting just above a blank line. Then I wrote, "It ends here." Not in rage, not with fists, not with slamming doors or shouted phone calls, but with facts, paperwork, boundaries. Because if there's one thing life in construction taught me, it's this: you build from the ground up. And if the foundation's rotted, you don't decorate the house. You tear the damn thing down. The phone rang just after 10. I was in the garage, reorganizing her gardening tools like she might come around the corner and ask where I put the spade. When the ringtone echoed off the concrete walls, something in me braced, like my body already knew who it would be. Michael. I stared at the screen for a few seconds before I answered. "Hey, Dad." His voice was light, like it was any other Tuesday. "How you holding up? Yesterday must have been tough." I didn't say anything. "I mean," he continued, "we were all thinking about her. Lauren lit a candle even. It was really beautiful." My stomach tightened. "A candle." He kept talking. "Anyway, the reason I called, and I hate to do this right now, but Lauren's birthday ended up costing more than we planned. You know how restaurants gouge you on short notice? The cake alone was $700. I waited. He laughed like we were in on it together. "So if you could wire me $12,000 today, that would get us back on track. I'll pay you back by the end of the month." I took a breath. A long, slow one. And then I said the word I'd never said to him. "No." The silence on the line cracked like ice. "What?" "No, Michael. I'm not sending you money." His voice shifted instantly, from casual to confused, then to agitated. "Dad, what are you talking about? After everything this family's done for you," I almost laughed. "For me? You mean the family that couldn't show up to the funeral?" I said, steady as bedrock. "The one that chose champagne over mourning?" "That's not fair," he snapped. "You know how important Lauren's birthday is. She only turns 35 once, and your mother only dies once." He paused, maybe realizing he couldn't spin that one. "You're grieving," he said, switching tactics. "You're not thinking straight. Mom would want you to help me." I looked at her photo on the workbench, the same one I'd stared at the night before. "No," I said again, calm, final. She would want me to stop. "You're being selfish," he spat. That one landed wrong. Me? After all the times I'd emptied bank accounts, canceled trips, sold tools to cover his deadlines. Now I was selfish? "You can't do this," he said, voice rising. "I'm your son." "You were," I said. "But right now, you're just another man asking for a check." He fell silent, and I didn't fill it. Eventually he hung up. I stood there in the garage, the phone still warm in my hand. The silence that followed didn't feel like loss. It felt like clarity. The first, "No," had left my mouth, and it didn't taste bitter. It tasted free. I used to flinch when his name lit up my phone. Now I looked at it like a stranger's number. Familiar, but meaningless. From the boy we raised, the man we launched, who now acted like we were the ones who owed him. I looked around the room. The couch we bought the year he graduated, because Lauren said their apartment needed an upgrade. We paid for the couch, the move, the first 3 months of rent. Called it a gift. I saw the family photo on the wall, all smiles at their wedding. I paid for that suit, the food, the flowers, his tux, the honeymoon hotel. He never looked back. Lauren had sent a thank you card. 3 lines. We're so grateful. Can't wait to build a life together. She built it on our dime. Now they acted like I was the charity case. I stood up, pulled that photo off the wall, and laid it face down on the dining table. Not out of anger, just realism. That wasn't my family anymore. Not the kind that shows up. Not the kind that remembers birthdays or makes Sunday dinner or sits beside you when your chest hurts at 3 a.m. They were something else now. Something distant. Entitled. Calculated. And I'd been complicit in every step. Smiling, nodding, opening my wallet because I thought it kept us close. It didn't. It just taught them I had no boundaries. But that man? He was gone. The one who kept quiet when they skipped Thanksgiving. The one who laughed off being called old-fashioned and too serious. The one who paid and paid and paid, thinking one day they'd say thank you without needing something. That man died the same day she did. And the one left behind? He's building again. But this time, he's building walls. Not to keep out love, to keep out use. I opened the kitchen drawer, pulled out a fresh legal pad, and wrote 3 words at the top. Protect. What's mine. Then I picked up the phone, not to call him. To call someone who'd help me do just that. And then I arranged to meet with the person my wife trusted the most. Mr. Jensen hadn't changed a bit. Same gray blazer, same cautious smile, same office that smelled faintly of paper and old coffee. He stood as I walked in, his handshake firm, but not performative. "Richard," he said, motioning me toward the chair across from his desk. I was sorry to hear about Caroline. I nodded once. She'd have wanted me to come here. Just not for this. I placed the folder on his desk, thick with records, printed emails, bank statements, and enough receipts to bury a decade. He opened it, started scanning. 5 minutes passed before he looked up. His face had shifted, the way lawyers look when something turns from unfortunate to unacceptable. "You've been financing his entire adult life," he said flatly. I said nothing. Just let that sentence sit in the air. He kept flipping. "You have documentation for all of this?" "Most of it. What I don't have, I can get." He leaned back in his chair, steepled his fingers like he did when he was thinking through risks. "Richard," he said, voice lower now, "it's time to protect yourself. You've given freely, yes. But that doesn't mean you're without recourse, especially not with how they're behaving now." I said the words I'd been sitting with for days. "I want to change the will." His eyes lifted. "Just a fraction. I want Michael and Lauren removed completely. I want everything locked down. No handouts, no loopholes." He nodded slowly, like a craftsman measuring twice before the first cut. "What do you want it to say?" I took a breath, looked at my hands. They were calloused still, even after retirement. Built houses for other people. Built a life for him. And now? Now I'd build something for people who'd never forget what it cost. "Half goes to a foundation," I said. "One that helps widowers like me. The ones who lost their wives and got forgotten in the silence. The other half goes to Emily." His pen paused. "Emily?" "My granddaughter. She's 8. Bright. Sweet. She still says thank you. I'm not leaving her behind just because her parents lost their way." Mr. Jensen nodded again, already jotting notes. "She'll have a trust. Education, housing, whatever she needs. The rest stays out of their reach." "Smart," he said. "We'll set up protections. And the business?" I leaned forward. "We co-own it. But he doesn't run it. Not anymore. I want a performance audit." Mr. Jensen cracked a smile. "You came ready. I'm tired of being the only one who wasn't." He stood, offered his hand again. "We'll get this done. And Richard," his tone softened, "this isn't about revenge. It's about clarity." "I know," I said. "But if it hurts a little on the way down, I'll sleep fine." The next day I came back here again. The pen didn't feel heavy. That surprised me. I thought it might. Thought I might hesitate. Flinch. feel the ghost of guilt trying to crawl up my arm and stop me before the ink touched paper. But I didn't. Mr. Jensen slid the final draft of the will across his desk. "This," he said, "makes it permanent." I nodded, picked up the pen, and signed. One stroke, two initials, date. And just like that, Michael and Lauren's golden parachute disappeared. I handed the pen back. Jensen nodded. Calm, clinical, the kind of man who's seen this moment before and knows better than to ask if I'm sure. "I've filed it with the county," he said. "It's legally binding. If they contest, they'll lose." "Let them try," I said. He leaned forward, tapping a few documents. "The foundation paperwork's already in motion. I reached out to a nonprofit we trust. You'll be the named founder. The funds will be earmarked for grief counseling, housing stipends, and peer support for widowed men." She would have liked that. I didn't say it out loud, just felt it. A warmth behind the ribs. Not pride, just rightness. "And Emily?" I asked. Jensen smiled. "Trust established. It activates on her 18th birthday. Covers tuition, housing, medical. And she gets a letter. You can write it now. We'll store it." A letter. I hadn't thought of that. But maybe she needed to know, not just what she got, but why. That she still mattered. That she was the only one in that family who still said thank you, who still saw me as something more than a wallet, with a heartbeat. I stood to leave. Jensen reached for one more folder. "Performance file from the business," he said. "You're still listed as managing partner." "Not for long," I muttered. I took the file, flipped through the pages on the hood of my truck outside. Missed deadlines, falsified expenses, client complaints. His name all over it. In ink. Not mistakes. Patterns. I shut the folder and slid it onto the passenger seat. He hadn't just forgotten who raised him. He forgot who signed his paycheck. He forgot who built the damn thing. By the time I started the engine, there was no bitterness left. Just purpose. He'd gambled everything on the assumption that I'd never say no. That grief would make me soft. But all it did was strip away the illusions. And now? Now he wasn't just out of the will. He was out of time. I didn't go home after signing the will. I went straight to the office. I parked in the same spot I'd used for 27 years, walked through the front doors like I still owned the place, because legally I did. And when the receptionist smiled and said, "Michael's out at lunch," I just nodded. "Good," I said. I didn't need him there for what came next. I walked into the back conference room, opened the performance folder, and laid out every page, like a foreman inspecting a cracked foundation. And when I finished reading, I knew exactly what needed to be torn down next. The file didn't lie. I wish it did. Part of me still wanted to believe he was just lost, that the kid I once taught how to hold a hammer still lived somewhere inside the man who now moved money like it wasn't real. But the numbers were real. So were the complaints. 3 major clients gone in 6 months, budgets overrun, deadlines missed, and expense reports that read more like shopping lists, dinners charged as strategy meetings, hotel stays logged under client acquisition that matched no travel calendar. He thought being my son made him untouchable. He forgot I built this company from blueprints and grit, not bloodlines. I brought the file to HR the next morning. Quiet, professional, no drama. "Conduct a review," I said. "Standard protocol, no special treatment." They nodded. They knew the tone. They'd heard it when I fired men twice their size. Not because I wanted to, but because the work demanded it. It took less than a week. The report came back worse than expected. He wasn't just negligent. He was arrogant, late to meetings, dismissive to junior staff, rewriting vendor agreements without approval, burning bridges faster than we could build them. "He's a liability," the HR lead said, setting the folder down. "If he wasn't he's not," I said, and that was that. We issued the termination letter on a Friday morning. No escort, no security, just a clean, quiet dismissal. I watched from my office window as he packed his things into a cardboard box. A plaque, a few books, something that looked like a whiskey decanter. Probably gifted, never earned. He didn't look up once, didn't storm in, didn't beg, just walked out like the job had bored him anyway. But I saw it, in the way his shoulders drooped, in the way he stood by his car for a full minute before unlocking it. That was the moment it hit him. He hadn't just lost his position, he'd lost access. The business card meant credibility. The title meant leverage. The income, the reputation, the assumptions people made when he said my name, all gone. He'd never known a day without a safety net. Until now. I went back to my desk and opened the letterhead template, typed out a clean notice. Effective immediately, Michael is no longer affiliated with this company in any capacity. All future inquiries should be directed to the managing office. It felt surgical, impersonal. But that's what happens when you treat family like a resource. Eventually the resource closes, and all you're left with is silence. Then she came in hot, didn't even wait to be announced. 1 second, my assistant was standing in the doorway. The next, Lauren brushed right past her, heels clicking like gunfire on the tile, red lipstick, designer coat, sunglasses perched like armor. She didn't dress for mourning, she dressed for war. "You can't do this," she snapped, slamming her purse onto the conference table. "You can't just cut him off like he's some intern." I didn't move, just looked at her the way I used to look at building inspectors who tried to bluff through code. "I didn't cut off your husband," I said. "I removed a failing employee." Her laugh was short, mean. "Failing? He carried that company for 2 years." I slid the file across the table. "Read it." She didn't. People like Lauren don't read what disproves them. She crossed her arms instead. "This is elder abuse." That word hung in the air. Sharp, calculated. "I'm sorry? You're grieving. You're making erratic decisions. Michael told me how withdrawn you've been. You need support, not isolation." I stood up, slowly, walked to the window, looked down at the parking lot. "Lauren," I said, still facing the glass, "do you know how many invoices your husband falsified?" She didn't answer. 16. "Do you know how many clients he lost?" "Those clients weren't a fit." I turned around. "No, he wasn't." She stepped forward, voice low and venomous. "We need that income, that position, that reputation. We have obligations, appearances." "There it is," I said. "What?" "The first honest thing you've said." I walked past her, opened the door. "Security will see you out." "You'd really do this to your own family?" I looked her in the eye. "You were never my family. You were my son's wife. And now you're just someone yelling in a room that no longer belongs to you." She stared at me for a second longer, like she was waiting for me to crack, to cave. The way I always did when Michael sent her in first softened me up. But I didn't. Not this time. 2 security guards stepped into view. Calm. Professional. She scoffed, grabbed her purse. As she passed me, she muttered, "This isn't over." "You're right," I said. "It's just getting started." She paused, turned back like she might say more, but thought better of it. The door clicked shut behind her, and for the first time in years, I let the silence stay. It wasn't lonely, it was earned. It didn't take long. In a town like ours, word moves faster than facts. By Sunday morning, I didn't have to say a word. The questions were already waiting for me at church. A handshake here, a hesitant glance there. "Richard, I'm so sorry. Is it true Michael's not with the company anymore?" I just nodded. Most didn't ask why. The smart ones already knew, or guessed, or had watched the signs for years and were just waiting for confirmation. But the judgment didn't fall on me. It fell on him. At the golf club, his name got removed from the tournament list. At the local charity gala, they regretfully withdrew his speaking slot. One by one, the places he used to walk into with a smile and someone else's money started closing their doors, not out of malice, but out of caution. People who had once smiled at Lauren's fashion started asking behind cupped hands, do they own that house, or are they just living in it? She used to post everything: champagne glasses, designer bags, vacation photos from places she couldn't pronounce. Now her profile went private. His friends, the ones who played nice as long as he picked up the tab, started making themselves scarce. Canceled lunches, delayed replies, One even asked me quietly if I'd consider bringing him back. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The church ladies were the harshest, though. That poor Caroline. I heard one say near the bake sale table, "If she saw how that boy turned out." Another whispered, "He didn't even come to the funeral, you know." And that was the nail. Not the job loss, not the inheritance, not the business fallout. That shame, the kind that doesn't shout, seeped into every room he entered. Every handshake that lasted a beat too short, every glance that didn't meet his eyes. You can lose money and recover, but reputation? That rots quiet and deep. I didn't gloat, didn't correct anyone, didn't defend him either. I let it happen. Because, for the first time, people were seeing what I'd been swallowing for years. That Michael stopped being a son the moment being one stopped paying. And now that the checks were gone, so was the mask. It started with the mortgage. I had co-signed it, back when he told me they'd never qualify a loan, said it was just paperwork, said he'd refinance within the year. That was 7 years ago. When I pulled out as guarantor, the bank didn't blink. They'd been watching him closer than I had. Missed payments, late fees, refinancing denied. Without my name, the numbers didn't add up anymore. I got the call from the loan officer myself. "Mr. Beckett, we've initiated the foreclosure process." I didn't ask them to. I didn't need to. You build a life on someone else's foundation, you better pray they never walk away. And I had. Next came the car. BMW. Fully loaded. A lease he could never afford, masked as business necessity. One afternoon, while he was inside a restaurant trying to charm someone into investing in whatever new scheme he'd dreamed up, the repo truck backed into the lot, calm and efficient. Neighbors saw. People always see. I heard about it from Bill, the barber. Said he watched the whole thing through his shop window. "Didn't even fight it," Bill said. "Just stood there, watching the guy hook it up like he was stealing his groceries." I said nothing. Didn't need to. Lauren started making calls. To friends, to acquaintances, even, I heard, to her parents. The same ones who gave them nothing but opinions and matching monogram towels at their wedding. But nobody was biting. The well had run dry. And people like Lauren don't dig their own. They marry into ones already dug for them. I passed their house once, purely by accident. Yard overgrown. Packages piled on the porch. One of those bright red final notice slips taped to the window. I didn't slow down. Didn't smile. Didn't mourn. They'd built that castle on borrowed sand. And the tide was coming in. It happened in public. Lauren always liked an audience. She dressed for one, spoke for one, lived like every room had mirrors. So when she snapped, it wasn't in private. It was in the middle of a crowded restaurant on a Saturday night, the kind of place that charges $40 for a salad and lets you pretend your life's still going well. Michael had taken her there, I heard, to prove he still had control, still had a card that worked. But even cards decline when the lies run out. A friend of mine, Paul, was 2 tables over. He said it started quiet. Tense whispers. Her jaw tight. His hands twitching like they wanted to disappear into his lap. Then the check came. And something was wrong. Maybe the card failed. Maybe the math didn't math. But Lauren's voice rose fast, sharp as broken glass. "You promised me this life," she hissed. "You said I'd never have to worry." Heads turned. Forks paused mid-air. Paul said Michael mumbled something. Excuse, maybe, or apology. Didn't matter. She stood up, clenched her fists at her sides, tears in her eyes, but not the kind that ask for comfort, the kind that want blood. "I married into wealth," she spat, "not debt." And then, flat palm, loud and sudden, she slapped him, right there, in front of the maître d', the waiter, and at least 3 couples from their church circle. Michael didn't raise his hand, didn't speak, just sat there, eyes wide, cheek red. Then she said the line that finally made it all click. "I should have married someone whose father stayed dead." Paul told me the room went silent. She grabbed her purse and walked out. Left him there with the check, the stares, and the sinking realization that even the woman who once clung to his name now saw it for what it was: useless. By Monday, the divorce was in motion. Lauren posted a vague New Beginnings message online. Flowers, candles, a wine glass raised like she was toasting herself. Michael didn't post anything, didn't show up anywhere. I knew that silence. I'd lived in it after Caroline passed. But the difference was, mine came from grief. His came from collapse. He disappeared for a while. Not literally. I still saw his name pop up here and there, on junk mail, on the foreclosure notice forwarded to my address out of habit. But out in the world, he vanished. No more Sunday brunches. No more social posts. No more photos of him in blazers, wine glass tilted just right, captioned with something smug, like, earned, not given. Because it turns out, once the money's gone, so is the audience. I overheard two of the old club guys at the hardware store one morning. "Did you hear about Michael? The son?" "Yeah. Shame. Thought he was doing well." "He was." That pause said everything. He was. When he was on my payroll, when my name still carried his lifestyle, when Lauren still answered the door in pearls. Now? Nobody knew where he was living. The house had gone to auction. The cars were gone. The country club canceled his membership when the dues bounced. And even the bar he used to tip big at started turning him away. I heard he tried to borrow money from an old fraternity brother. The guy said no, offered him a job instead. Entry-level, hourly, temp. Michael stormed out. He wasn't built for humility, wasn't built for self-made anything. He'd gone from champagne to silence, from power lunches to microwave noodles, from curated lifestyle posts to selling his golf clubs online for rent money. And still, he didn't call. Not to apologize, not to explain, not even to lie. That told me everything. He didn't think I was angry. He thought I was done. And for once, he was right. It was overcast the morning of the auction. Fitting, I thought. The kind of gray sky that hangs low like judgment. I parked across the street, far enough not to be noticed, close enough to watch. The front lawn looked like it had given up. Dead patches. Overgrown edges. That once perfect walkway now cracked and crooked, like the life they tried to build inside. A small crowd had gathered at the courthouse steps. Bidders. Curious onlookers. The occasional neighbor trying not to admit they came to watch a man fall. And standing off to the side, hands in his pockets, eyes hollow, was Michael. He looked smaller. Not just thin. Small. Like someone who finally realized the castle he lived in had no walls. He kept glancing around, as if waiting for someone to show up and save him. Lauren wasn't there. None of his friends. Just a banker in a suit and a clipboard with bad news. When the bidding started, he looked at the numbers like they were being spoken in another language. He mouthed something I couldn't make out. Probably disbelief. Probably denial. He didn't notice my lawyer until the final bid was placed. That's when his head snapped up. Eyes locked across the street. Not at me, but at the man beside me. Recognition dawned. Then panic. Then something worse. Understanding. Because deep down, he knew. He knew this wasn't random. He knew the foreclosure, the severance, the silence. All of it had been orchestrated. Not hastily. Not out of rage. But carefully. Brick by brick. He tried to walk over, but someone held him back. An auction official, maybe. It didn't matter. He didn't cry. Just stood there, lips parted, breathing like a man, learning how loss actually feels. I watched until the papers were signed, until the keys changed hands, until the house, the one I helped buy, the one they said was theirs now, no longer belonged to him or me. It was gone, but so was the illusion. And sometimes that's the more valuable trade. He came to the house on a Tuesday, didn't call, didn't text, just showed up, thin, unshaven, dressed in clothes that didn't fit right, either too loose from weight loss or borrowed from someone who didn't care how he looked. I opened the door slowly. We stared at each other for a few long seconds. Then he spoke, voice cracked and soft. "Dad, I've lost everything." I didn't answer. Not right away, because What do you say to a man who only finds his father at the bottom of his fall? He looked down, cleared his throat. I know I made mistakes. I was selfish, blind. I didn't see what I had until it was gone. I finished. He nodded. Please, I need help. Just a place to stay, a fresh start. Why now? I asked. His eyes darted. Because you're all I have left. No, I said, calm. I've always been here. You're just out of options. He looked like a boy again, but not the boy I raised, the one I had to leave behind. I just need a second chance, he said. Please, you always believed in me. I stepped aside, not to let him in, but to retrieve something from the drawer near the door. A journal. Her journal. I held it out. Read the page marked, I said. Then we'll talk. He looked confused, but opened it. Read silently. His lips moved, and then he froze. I knew the passage by heart. We fear Michael only loves money. What if he can't love us? He looked up, eyes watery, but not from sorrow, from fear. Fear that she was right. Fear that the door behind me might stay closed. I didn't know she felt that way, he whispered. That's because you never asked. He handed the journal back like it burned to hold. Can I come in? He asked, barely above a whisper. I studied him, really looked. Not at the stubble, not at the sag in his shoulders, but at the absence. There was no remorse. Just need. He missed comfort. Not me. I stepped forward, journal still in hand. Tell me this, I said. What was your mother's birthday? He blinked. What was her favorite flower? He shook his head, mouth open, no sound. You never knew her, I said, voice low, and you never wanted to. I stepped back inside and closed the door. Not hard, not in anger, just firmly enough to end it. I didn't move for a while, just stood there with my hand on the doorknob, listening to the sound of footsteps that didn't linger. No banging, no last-minute speech, just retreat. Maybe for the first time in his life he knew there was nothing left to take. I walked back into the kitchen, set the journal down, poured a cup of coffee, didn't even notice it had gone cold. On the back porch, the wind picked up just enough to stir the chimes she loved. It didn't feel triumphant, just final. Later that afternoon, I pulled out the letter Jensen suggested I write, the one for Emily, for when she's grown and wonders how things got to be the way they are. I wrote it by hand. No edits, no flourishes, just truth. I told her about her father, the good years, the slow decline, and the final break. I told her about Caroline, how she loved fiercely, gave freely, and left a quiet kind of wisdom behind that only surfaced when the noise died down. And I told her why the money wasn't Michael's, because it was never about the money. It was about what people do when love no longer pays. I sealed the letter and slipped it into the trust file. Then I took the journal back to the bedroom, set it on her nightstand. Her glasses still sat there, lenses dusty, frame crooked from time. I left them that way. Before bed, I looked around the house. It didn't feel full, but it didn't feel empty either. It felt honest. No pretending, no bargaining. I poured one last cup of coffee and sat by the window. The street lights hummed outside. Somewhere in the distance, wind chimes stirred again. I picked up her picture, ran my thumb across the glass. It's finished, my love, I said, voice steady. We honored ourselves, not him, and for the first time in years, I slept without waiting for the phone to ring.